I actually had an experience with PTSD. So for about 4 months after I had a very traumatic experience last year, I was raided by the LAPD. They came to my door. They thought they received a report that somebody was breaking into my house, and my husband actually was breaking into my house and kidnapping me, which I don't. Bizarre, but they came in with a SWAT team and they were searching my house. Like, it's like I was down on the ground, like crazy things.
So you, I remember reading about this, and you felt that the LAPD, that you were potentially targeted because you are a former government researcher, anti-drug, and now you are a very vocal pro-medicinal marijuana advocate. So tell me about what happened that night, or how did the raid happen, and what's going on now with it?
Okay. So this happened during broad daylight. So it was around like noon and, cooking lunch with my husband. We work from home. We had a marketing company. We also do advocacy from home and run a nonprofit. So we're at home all day, literally hear some banging on the door and there's a SWAT team, there's a helicopter. I've never had an experience with the police before. So I open up, I'm like, hi, and pushed out of the way, like get out of the way. I'm like, what are you doing here? Don't worry about it. They come rushing in and with assault rifles and literally just like sheer panic attacks. I've already had a panic disorder before in my life, and it was just like nonstop, just like sheer like I'm going to die, like I don't know what's going on. And they immediately take my husband outside. At the time he wasn't my husband, he was my fiance, but they take him down the street far away. I can't see him. They start questioning him and they like start asking me like what's going on here, who are you kidnapping? I'm like, what is going on? Are you kidnapped? I'm like, oh, I'm making lunch, and then it got to be that they started to do a search of our home and they found medical marijuana because we're both patients and we have recommendations. I was like, here, let me show you my recommendation.
Do you have a medical marijuana license?
Yeah. So we have everything legal in the state of California, but unfortunately we had a police officer at the time that either maybe he felt stupid for raiding a house under maybe the wrong phony 911 call, or who knows what happened, or because it was a targeting. He was basically saying, under federal law, medical marijuana is illegal, so we have to arrest you. We have to put you in jail. And then he was actually very angry about medical marijuana to begin with. He's like, there's no such thing as medical marijuana. It shouldn't be legal. Like, patients are drug dealers. You live near a school. Like, you probably sell drugs to kids. And I was like, no, I'm a researcher. I write books. I try to help people. And he's just like, oh, you're a scientist? Well, then you're definitely making drugs here. And I was just like, no, I'm not. Like, why would you assume that? You watch too much Breaking Bad? And he was just like, people like you, like shouldn't be doing this. And I was just like, what am I doing? Like, I what they confiscated from my house was about two ounces of tincture, which is cannabis and alcohol, and is used topically because I have muscle spasms. Actually, I have like the initial signs of MS.
So it's not even something that you actually eat.
No, exactly. I was like, really? It's like you took like basically like my like Vicks vapor rub, but in a cannabis style. And so it was pretty absurd. I was just like, no one's selling this to children. Children wouldn't even take this. This is for like old ladies and me, and we went to jail for 2 days. We started fighting this case. We were, initially offered plea deals. We decided
So you went to jail, you who've never had a run-in with the police.
Yeah.
Were in jail for 2 days.
Let me tell you this. It was even more traumatic than that. So, like, I had a second-degree sunburn all over myself, and I actually had apple cider vinegar. I was soaking in it, and I was going to immediately rinse it off when this all happened. So I went to jail with, like, no warm clothes, apple cider vinegar, which was burning me, like, after some point. Like, it did not feel good after a while. And I was in jail for 2 days.
They put, like, you in handcuffs and put you in the back of a police car.
Yeah.
What were you doing at the time?
I was strip searched, too, because I was charged with a felony. So, concentrated cannabis is considered a felony. And they also, later on, they added conspiracy to possess, too, which is... Conspiracy, is a very weird charge. They don't really have to prove too much. They'd be like, oh, you and your husband thought about buying something at the supermarket. Couples don't conspire to do things together.
Yeah.
It's a ridiculous charge. But because of the conspiracy charge, it made the case more difficult and more unique and took a long time to fight. We ended up in a courthouse where the judge was really anti-marijuana and really made it clear that if we weren't going to take a plea deal, he was going to make our lives really hard.
Tell me, Michelle, what it was like when you were in jail for those 2 days.
Well, beginning with the strip search and knowing that I was in jail for something that basically was completely legal in California and completely wrong, but treated basically like I was a drug addict or drug dealer or even worse than that. Basically, everyone there just treated me rudely. I was screamed at, yelled at. I was basically humiliated. I mean, when you're strip searched, it's just it feels like you've been violated, and it's just like I went from literally 1 hour, happy lunch with my husband to here I am like after well, it was more like 3 hours later because of the search and being transported. First, we were transported to a minor holding cell when they tested our jar and found out that it had cannabis in it, which I already told them, but. Being strip searched and then being taken to the regular jail. It was frightening. I was there with, people that actually did bad crimes and were scary and violent, and some of them were mentally ill, and there was a woman there that was accused of like stabbing her boyfriend, and I was just like, I may not make it through these 2 days. Like, I'm really scared. And I also wasn't allowed to call my attorney. I had my attorney's card in my bag and I wasn't allowed to. Like, literally, they made it really hard for me to get out. The one saving grace in how I ended up being able to bail out was that my husband was also in the same jail, not, obviously in the women's jail, but he was able to basically bribe someone else that he was in jail with to let their girlfriend call our lawyer, who he memorized her number.
Wow.
Because we were both not allowed to get our lawyers' numbers and like not even like make calls.
So what did they want you just to stay in jail for eternity?
Well, obviously you get a trial, hearing, and so they would have, brought us the hearing. We would have, gone out like after like 3 days or something. I think the LA prisons like make them do that, make them see you after 3 days. But you really don't want to do that in the prison system because then it makes you look more guilty and they're less likely to dismiss your charges or add on more like worse charges. We were facing felony charges. So actually after we bailed out, I guess not the city DA, whoever charges felonies actually dropped our charges. We go, oh great, look at that. Like, we didn't do anything wrong. Well, it's like we were in jail and then we had to pay, $1,000 bail each, but we got out. So this should all be over. Nope, the city picked it up. And then tried in a misdemeanor court. And then after a whole bunch of craziness, they were like trying to add new charges, like we were distributing, we're doing manufacturing, like they actually tried to charge us with felonies in misdemeanor court, which of course is not legal in any place here in California. It was just a mess. Basically, we didn't have the money at the time because we lost so much work. Nobody wanted to work with us after we were arrested. So we were broke. We were homeless. Like, we had to move somewhere else and spend all the money on that because our landlord was forced to evict us because the cop actually called our landlord and scared him and told him that federal asset seizure laws said that if he allowed like drug dealers to live at his house, that he would lose his house. And so he made us leave. Which is funny because we weren't even charged with drug dealing. We were charged with concentrated cannabis possession, and then it was dropped at the time. So we're not even charged with anything. Like, this is ridiculous that you're calling our landlord. And he was very distressed and, didn't want to deal with that. So
what happened in court? Because you had your legal medical marijuana license.
Did not matter. So basically all that's evidence that they present on trial. If you have a really high-powered attorney, they can go there and argue it, and money makes things go away. If you're in a bad place, unfortunately financially, and you're sometimes dependent on the public defender system, it doesn't go so well for you. And especially in courts, they assume there's no medical marijuana use. Like, they think it's it's a joke that people don't actually need this as medicine. Like, literally they're like you're not sick enough to have it. And I was like, I have the beginning of MS. Like, I'm using this to prevent that. I have muscle spasms. I had a nerve that went dead for about 3 months, literally.
So tell me about why you've been using medical marijuana. You say that you have early MS symptoms?
Yeah, so I mean, I've had nerve problems. I've had nerves go dead all the time. I've had shooting pains, electrical pains. I have sensitivity to temperature, like back spasms, leg spasms, a lot of issues. And, it takes a little bit of time to figure out what exactly is wrong. So, but.
So you're using, so now you're using the marijuana medicinally to try to prevent MS and.
Yeah, so for me, I smoke it to relieve anxiety, in the short term. But for me, really eating it helps because to take any of that medicine and really apply it to reducing disease or preventing disease, which is what I want to do with the MS symptoms, is really prevent disease, prevent it from being full-blown MS, which thank God, like, thank God my symptoms aren't getting worse, and sometimes they're mostly gone until I stop taking the cannabis. So for me, it's really important for me to eat as much cannabis as possible. It's pretty much like a vitamin my body doesn't make enough of, and I think I found that with a lot of people. It helps a lot of people. It helps me. It helps my husband, and it helps so many people. So for the judicial system to say you're not sick enough. Who's really sick enough? So basically, you only think that terminally ill, like cancer patients, should be using this. No, there's so many medical applications for this, and it's not your decision to tell me what goes into my body. So I mean, I've had a lot of issues with that. Thankfully, over the months, we had actually an amazing, phenomenal public defender team. Finally, after shifting like 6 times through the system, they're like, "You've got a new lawyer this time. You've got a new lawyer this time." We went to court like I guess like once every like 3 weeks for a while. So literally it's like 10 months of going to court. And finally we got a shift from the judge that was clearly anti-marijuana, and we were shifted downtown to a new judge as soon as we appeared for our trial. It was supposed to go to jury selection that day. It was like scary. We're like, we have our medical marijuana papers, we have this, we have an expert saying that this is all legal. And still it was going to trial, and thankfully they dismissed it after, months and months. And literally this was like 3 weeks ago, and
So it's all been dismissed.
all dismissed, yes.
Oh, that must be like a huge brick off
when
your
they
shoulders.
said that, it was so anticlimactic too, because you go in there and they're like, case dismissed, and you're like, that's it. Like it was just like one word made all this pain and all this trauma that we've been going through just like that. That's all you had to say. Done. And it's over. Instead of, I had months of PTSD from all this. Every time I had to go to court, I went through like more episodes, literally like anxiety, panic attack, like feeling like the world's ending. Like I had a panic attack at the train station. Like the police had to come. Like I couldn't breathe. Like I was literally like hiding under desks. Just the lack of security and the feeling safe and feeling like police are protecting you, when you feel like the police are there to hurt you instead of protect you, and you can't call them for help, or you just start questioning, I'm living in a world that doesn't abide by the rules anymore. So like nothing's safe, not like everything is just ripped out from under you. Your friends, leave you when you're facing criminal charges, you don't get work, you're very isolated, and experiencing what it's like to, as a patient, basically be persecuted for the medicine I'm choosing to put in my body was very eye-opening. I would have never thought that this actually happens to people. When you read in the paper, people fighting charges, usually most people think that people are guilty. Oh yeah, like the police would never do something wrong. And then dealing with people that seem like they would plant evidence on people or just do things to harm the marijuana movement that they know is going forward. And they were like, well, if we legalize marijuana, everything will be legal. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't agree that some drugs should be used, but at the same time, there's so many horrible penalties to families, to people, just for simple nonviolent possession. And it's ridiculous. People shouldn't be going to jail for nonviolent drug possession, no matter what it is, no matter what it's being used for. As long as it's not hurting other people, you shouldn't destroy someone's life, their ability to make money, their ability to change or learn or whatever. And it's just, it's horrible that the experience happened to me, but at the same time, being able to go through it has helped me understand how much injustice there is and how much work there needs to be done on educating and helping and healing people. And
so you're not giving up. This hasn't intimidated you to stop your activism with medicinal marijuana.
It's funny because people tell me I'm crazy. They're like, you went to jail. Like, you scared? Like I told people I was doing this interview, and they're like, okay, are you scared? Like, the police are going to come and lock you up. They're like, she's doing more drugs. Oh no. But there are laws, and the police should respect them. And I've now worked with other government agencies and this and that, and people, are now opening up, and they're learning, that just because the laws are a certain way doesn't mean that the people aren't wrong. It's the laws that some are wrong. And it's going to take a long time to change some of these laws and some of these restrictions. But at the same time, there is an evolution coming of thought and of legal practices. Yeah. So I'm on the right side. You know what? If what I say gets me in trouble, it's unfortunate, but I have a commitment to all humanity to help, and I have the knowledge, I have the passion for this, and hopefully I can make some change and help some other people and prevent people that are just using spiritual medicine or medicine of any kind from going to jail. You should not be jailed because you decided to use mushrooms instead of Prozac. And it's your body, it's your choice, and everyone has a different brain chemistry. You cannot tell me that this drug is going to fix it better than this drug. And all the difference between mushrooms and Prozac is that this government agency said it was legal and this one said this one isn't. There's no morality to drugs. They make it such a black and white issue. It's all gray.
And then if you look also, that drug war is not based on science. You as a
Oh my God, yeah.
So tell me some ways that you've just noticed with the classification, especially. I mean, you look at mushrooms, they are Schedule 1, no medicinal value, even though numerous studies dating back to the 1950s have shown psilocybin can attenuate anxiety, potentially be used as an antidepressant medicine, induce spiritual experiences. It's not neurotoxic, non-addictive. The caffeine in your coffee is more toxic on your body than these mushrooms. This drives me nuts as a journalist.
Oh
This
my God.
must drive you crazy as a neuroscientist who actually understands the science behind all of this.
Exactly. It's crazy. And you can write letters to senators or to the DEA or to this, even the agencies that are commissioning research, like the National Institute of Drug Abuse. And as long as federal law says that this is a Schedule 1 drug, they're forced to do certain things in their heads, right? How could we commission this as a medicine if it's Schedule 1? Like, it's just like we're caught in this catch-22. And until somebody basically boycotts this and says, no, like, we're not going to listen to what this stupid government agency that apparently is illiterate because they can't read all the scientific literature. It's just
You think by now, especially now that the majority of the population is waking up to this, that they would reverse some of these schedulings or go back and re-examine them. But I think it makes them look more ridiculous from a journalistic perspective that they haven't even gone back and reclassified drugs, knowing that the science is there. Look at marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
How many soldiers say it's attenuating their PTSD? How many people who are having seizures are being helped by cannabis oil? People with tumors.
Yeah, well, the one issue is that the government always wants to make money and they always want to have control. So they'd rather basically pharmaceuticalize all these drugs. Like they're trying to make right now LSD without the component that makes people have spiritual experiences for use for cluster headaches. They'll try to take basically the magical part out of the mushrooms in order to treat anxiety and PTSD. But the interesting thing is that when you take some of the other components out of these medicines, like we've seen with Marinol, when you take the CBD, when you take the other components, the terpenes out of cannabis, it doesn't work as well as the whole plant. People describe Marinol experiences as a much more unpleasant experience than using whole cannabis. And I think that people are going to see that with these pharmaceutical magic mushrooms in the future that they're probably going to try to develop. So without the spiritual experience, you may not get as much anxiety relief.